3 children for every woman of childbearing age. They have the child, the mother gets a fucking paycheck.
Oh, it's so much worse than people realize. I'm convinced if Americans knew what Israelis have, they would lash out rationally. Before we get all the way into it, they are the largest recipient of US aid at around $320 billion, with at least another $21.7 billion in the last 2 years. Let's just do a quick comparison between what Israelis get and what Americans get. They get 15 weeks paid maternity leave. We get 0. They also get bed rest benefits. So let's say you're pregnant, you need to be on bed rest, you'll get paid for that. In the United States, no, you won't. And they also have universal healthcare in Israel. We do not have that in the United States. Plus, once you have a baby, they just give you money. You get a birth grant just for having a baby. As an American, can you even imagine just being handed $600 for having a baby instead of, paying ridiculous amounts of money? And these are numbers from 2017, so it's significantly more expensive now. But if you're Israeli, everything about your hospitalization is paid for. And if you're lucky enough to have twins, they're just giving you $3,000. And then you also get paid every month just for having a kid. If you have 1 kid, you get $618 a year, but the average Israeli family has 3 kids. They're getting $2,100 a year. I don't know, my fellow Americans, what could you do with an extra $2,100? And those are just the benefits for being pregnant and having kids. You're gonna freak out when you see how much money they get from their government. There's a reason so many Israelis have New Jersey and New York accents. It is good money to be a colonizer. You want your brand new colonizer absorption basket? They're gonna give you your first cash payment at the goddamn airport. How much are you gonna get for a family of 3 to help you settle in? Just $21,000. And if you're struggling to find work while living in someone else's home, no worries. A family of 3 can get $5,000 paid out over 6 months. Don't forget, they get their college for free. We do not. I haven't even gotten to how much their rent is subsidized. You're going to be so upset. But I wanted to remind you that as Americans, we are subsidizing them to the tune of about $11 billion a year. I don't know, it kind of seems like they can afford their own goddamn bombs. We don't have any of those benefits, and our leaders keep saying we can't afford those benefits, but somehow we keep having money to give it to them.
If not stopped, Iran could produce a nuclear weapon in a very short time. It could be a year.
They have the wherewithal, the stored up, preserved knowledge to make a bomb very quickly if they wanted to.
Iran is so dangerous. Weeks away from having the fissile material for an entire arsenal of nuclear bombs.
They're very close. They're 6 months away from being about 90% of having the rich uranium for an atom bomb.
Iran is gearing up to produce 25 bombs, atomic bombs a year, 250 bombs in a decade.
Iran will be capable of producing alone, without importing anything, nuclear bombs within 3 to 5 years.
Once Saddam has nuclear weapons, the terror network will have nuclear weapons. Next thing you'll see is a nuclear bomb in the World Trade Center. If you take out Saddam's regime, I guarantee you that it will have enormous positive...
What if I told you that Dracula wasn't just horror fiction? Rather, it was actually created as a social critique of Jews. With the new movie that was just released, The Legend of Count Dracula is back on people's minds. But what almost nobody knows is that the original book Dracula by Bram Stoker was actually a dark satire about the social issue of the surge of Ashkenazi Jews that was moving into England at the time. I know you might think I'm reaching with this one, but just watch. So first we have Dracula's origin and appearance. He is described as being pale, having black hair and bushy eyebrows. But the beaky aquiline nose is the key feature. This characteristic hooked nose is present in virtually every anti-Semitic caricature in history. But it goes deeper. So why would Bram Stoker concern himself at all with Jews in the first place? Well, it's because in the 1880s and 1890s, over 150,000 Jews poured into England as refugees from Eastern Europe, which is of course where Dracula came from. And why did that happen? Because in 1881, Tsar Alexander II was assassinated by mainly Jewish communist terrorists, the exact same kind of people that would later plot the Bolshevik Revolution. In retaliation, pogroms erupted all across the Pale of Settlement region. That's the region of Europe where most Jews lived after having been exiled from Christian kingdoms over centuries prior. But while most of these Jews were working class, some of them had tremendous wealth. Those were mainly the moneylenders who made massive fortunes off of usury and manipulation of markets. So here we have yet another sign. Jonathan Harker, the lawyer that he hires to buy real estate in London, is tasked with buying properties there by Dracula, but to do it strategically with the intent of manipulating real estate prices. It is notable that by the 1890s, many wealthy Jewish families like the Rothschilds had managed to infiltrate royal families and ultimately achieve royal titles, mostly by buying them, and this was very controversial in 19th century Europe. That's exactly why Dracula is portrayed as a count. But he's not just manipulating prices. Dracula specifically wants access to high society England so he can infiltrate it and corrupt it with his evil. In the wake of the ongoing Epstein scandal, this reference should be easy to discern. There are many other references. The boxes of dirt Dracula sleeps in are called out to smell like Old Jerusalem by the dock workers. His assistant Hildesheim is described as an old Hebrew. And of course, Dracula has an obvious aversion to Jesus and to the cross, which Jews have always had animosity toward, and the list goes on. But the most obvious reference of all is that Dracula is a bloodsucker. And I don't just mean in the financially parasitic way, which is definitely another of their stereotypes based on greed and usury. I mean the actual drinking of blood, which is an ancient stereotype based on a concept called blood libel. But you're gonna have to research that one on your own. There are even more really interesting references to this.
Jews were captured in Italy in 1475 and arrested immediately after the body of 2-year-old Simon was found on Easter Sunday, March 26th. His body was discovered in the cellar of a Jewish family house. This image is the depiction of the discovery. 18 Jewish men and 5 Jewish women confessed to ritual unaliving the child to use his blood for Passover bread. 15 of the accused were burned at the stake. The others were executed. What occurred was a blood libel, and blood libels often claim that Jews require human blood for the baking of matzos, an unleavened flatbread which is eaten during Passover. Earlier versions of blood libel accused Jews of ritually reenacting the crucifixion, and the accusations often assert that the blood of Christian children is especially coveted. Today they say it was all made up because of anti-Semitism. I guess the reason they were expelled from over 100 other locations around the world is because of anti-Semitism. Makes sense. But of course, none of that is true. It's just anti-Semitism, and it was all made up, and this was just for educational purposes. Cough, cough. My question is, why would this be depicted in several different time periods by several different types of people?
All the Jews have to get out.
Ferdinand and Isabella gave Jews until July 31st, 1492, to flee their kingdom. Just 3 days later, Christopher Columbus set sail on his fateful voyage.
So when you think in terms of 1492, you know, we're taught it's Columbus sailing ocean blue. But even Christopher Columbus, when he's leaving, there are vessels of all sizes filled with Jews who are being expelled from now Catholic Christian Spain.